Hello everyone and welcome to Plot Twists. So today I'm going to be doing the 20 questions book tag. I was tagged by Serena from A Wandering Mind. And this is just 20 bookish related preference questions. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So question number 1, how many books is too many books in a series? And I think this is such a loaded question because it completely depends on the series itself. There are series that I've read that are 6 or 7 books that are all super enthralling. And there are series that I've read that have been 3 books where I'm like, you didn't even need this middle book. This was a colossal waste of my time. So I don't think there's necessarily a number that is too many as long as the writing continues to be solid and we're not just continuing to write books to continue to write books. That being said, I do feel very intimidated if a book series has more than, I would say, 8 books. Once we get over 8 books, the series becomes a lot more intimidating for me to begin. I have been wanting to read The Wheel of Time for God knows how long, and it just feels like there's so many books in this series, and it's just such an overwhelming task. I am hoping to start it soon and just kind of like force myself to start, because I'm sure once I start, being able to keep up with it will be easy. But yeah, I think that's my answer to question number 1. Question number 2, how do you feel about cliffhangers? So I think this is another it depends. In general, I would say I'm not a huge fan of cliffhangers. Mostly because if I'm reading books as they come out, it's super frustrating to get to the end of a book, hit a really solid cliffhanger where you definitely want to keep reading, and the book doesn't come out for another year. So I would say that I like tiny cliffhangers. I think it's important to leave enough that people want to continue to read your series because of something that you've posed at the end of the book. However, I personally get really frustrated when there's a huge cliffhanger. I wouldn't necessarily say it deters me from a series, but I definitely prefer them without it. Question number 3, hardcover or paperbacks? In general, I buy a lot of paperbacks because they're cheaper. But once I start a series in either hardcover or paperback, I have a strong opinion that it has to be continued in that same sense. So if I buy the first book in a hardcover, we're buying the whole series in hardcover. So I'm very particular about which books I buy in hardcover versus which books I buy in paperback. If I buy a first book in a paperback, that says I'm willing to wait for the paperback version of it to come out. Buying a series in hardcover says I know I'm not going to be able to wait. So yeah, that's kind of how I do that. Questions 4 and 5 I feel like are both super loaded questions, but question 4 is my favorite book. I don't know that I really have a favorite necessarily, but I'm going to mention 3 Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake. This is the series that really got me hardcore back into reading again, and I think it's one of the best YA fantasy series I've read in a long time. The premise is pretty unique, and the characters are some of my favorites. This book centers around a society in which a queen gives birth to 3 girls. The 3 girls each have a power of some sort, and there are, I think, 6 possible options for what that power could be. You have poisoners, which are immune to poison. You have elementals, which really deal with like weather control and electricity, that kind of thing. You have naturalists, who are very much like in tune with nature. You have people with the war gift, who really have the ability to like strategically plan, and they're typically very strong. And then I think the last one is you have some that have the sight gift, where they're able to see into the future. By this point in the society, princesses with the sight gift are not allowed to live, and that's definitely relevant to the story. But anyway, so you have our three main princesses who are allowed to grow up together until they turn 6, and they're separated to develop their powers with people from the particular section that have their power. And then when they turn 16, they have to fight to the death to figure out who the next queen is, and the cycle continues. So our Three Dark Crowns starts with our main characters, Mirabella, who's an elemental, Catherine, who is a poisoner, and Arsinoe, who is a naturalist, and they are coming up to the point where they are going to have to fight to the death. So you get to see the last couple of months of their training, as well as kind of where this whole thing begins. This series has 4 books, and I don't feel like there is a lull in the reading at any point throughout the series. And I just think this is probably one of my favorite books of all time. Question number 5 is a least favorite book. I definitely would say I do not have a least favorite book by any means. But the first book that came to mind when I thought of this is Finnick and the Rock. This was one of the first books I read after I got back into reading, and it was just so hard to get through. I don't know if my opinion would have changed, 5 years later, as I read a lot more diverse things than I did at that point, but either way, that's the first thing that I thought of, so that's what I'm going to mention. Question number 6 is, how do you feel about love triangles? I'm here for a good love triangle. I don't think there's any need to include a love triangle just to include a love triangle, but if you've really developed the relationship between all of the characters, sometimes it can add to the story, so I'm okay with it in that circumstance. Number 7, the most recent book you couldn't finish. To be honest, I haven't DNF'd a book all year, so I don't really know what this is. I think the most recent book that I put down to finish later, though, was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. And not that the book wasn't interesting, it's just that I wasn't really jiving with the book while I was reading it. I'm still hoping to finish this probably by the end of next month, if not the end of this one, so that I can continue on to Rule of Wolves. But that is definitely my answer for this question. Question number 8, a book I'm currently reading. So I'm currently reading 2 books, Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson and Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. Today I actually finished, as I'm filming this, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Question number 9. The last book I recommended to someone. So this is 100% Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I finished that this morning, and I recommended it to someone by this afternoon. It really just was another hit in my mind for Taylor Jenkins Reid. I really love her writing style, her characters, her plots. I don't know. I think she's very quickly becoming an auto-buy author for me. Question number 10, the oldest book you read by publication date. I honestly don't know, but my first instinct is to say that this is probably Aesop's Fables. I really can't think of anything else that I've read that could potentially be that old, so that's definitely what I'm going to go with. The next question, number 11, is the newest by publication date, and that's, again, Malibu Rising, because that just came out. Number 12 is a favorite author. I actually have a couple I think I'm going to mention here. The first is Neal Shusterman, which is the author of Scythe. I've actually read quite a few of his series at this point, and standalones, and I have really yet to hit one that I really didn't jive with. So he is definitely up there on my list of favorite authors. I'm also pretty fond of Ellen Hopkins. All of her books are told through the medium of poetry, and all of the stories that she talks about involve some really heavy issues, whether it's drug abuse or mental health, or I think there's even a series about prostitution. There's just a lot going on in her novels, and I've really enjoyed all the ones I've read. Number 13, buying versus borrowing books. I prefer to buy books if I can afford them, as you can see. But that's not always feasible, so I definitely appreciate borrowing books as well. I think the best answer to this is a good balance between both. Number 14, a book you dislike that everyone seems to love. I honestly have no idea. I can't even think of a book I've read that everybody seems to love that I really didn't care for. I can think of some books that other people really didn't care for that I loved, but not the other way around. So I don't even think I have an answer for this particular question. Moving on to 15, bookmarks versus dog ears. 100% of the time, bookmarks. It irks me so bad when people dog ear books. Obviously, I really don't care if you own it. That's, you do you, whatever. But when I see them in like library books or anything that I've borrowed in any way, shape, or form, it just irritates me to no end. So definitely bookmarks. However, I'm very much one of those, I will use whatever's closest to me as a bookmark. I do have these magnetic bookmarks that I really enjoy, so I try to use those, but in the end, whatever works. Question 16, a book you can always reread. So I don't really reread a whole lot of books. And I actually think the book I'm going to mention here, I haven't even reread yet, but I just know that it's going to be true of this. And that's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this book earlier this year, and it's honestly just so good. I'd never finished a book and thought, wow, I can't wait to reread this. But I finished that book and I was like, wow, I can't wait to reread this. So that's definitely what I'm going to mention here. Number 17, can you read while hearing music? So I can read while while music is playing or while there's noise in the background. However, I definitely prefer to read when it's quiet. So that's kind of my answer there. Number 18, do you prefer one point of view or multiple POVs? I think I definitely prefer multiple POVs. There's never well, I don't want to say that. There isn't a book I've read yet that has multiple POVs that I really thought I wish I had less perspective. Sometimes I don't necessarily like the perspective that's chosen, but I would say that that's far and few between. Usually having multiple POVs I find really exciting. So that's definitely my answer. Number 19. Do you read a book in one day or over multiple settings? I definitely read. I very rarely read in one single day. It really would have to be a shorter book, and man, would I have to be super into it. So for 90% of what I read, it's definitely over multiple days. And question 20, the last one for this particular tag, is who do I tag? To be perfectly honest, I'm not super sure who has possibly done this tag, so I think I'm going to tag Constance the Reader in this. If you've already done that, friend, don't even worry about it, obviously. Yeah. Also, if you have not done this tag, I would love to hear your answers. If you decide to do it, definitely let me know because I would love to watch and help support you. Okay, friends, so if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and hit that bell icon for notifications. I am posting videos every 5 to 6 days, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Bye!